13th. The Royals are in first place, otherwise known as regular session number 47, and the Royals are along with every other team in baseball, but the Royals are in first place today. Regular session number 47 will begin at this time with the invocation delivered by our very own Alderman Bill Van Buskirk, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Bill. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you again, Bill. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Alderman Kramer.
Here.
Alderman Josh Green.
Here.
Alderman Azier.
Here.
Alderman Jason Green.
Here.
Alderman Emerson.
Oh, here.
I'm sorry.
Alderman Melson.
Here.
Alderman Ertz.
Here.
Alderman Van Buskirk.
Here.
Alderman Mock.
Here.
Alderman Lightfoot.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you. This time I'm going to open the floor up to public comments. We've had a few people sign up. There may be some more in the audience, but we're going to start at this time with Steve Gunther. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Gunther. I'm the Charter Commission Chairman, and I'm here to remind everybody that on the 24th of March, next Tuesday, we'll be having our second town hall meeting to discuss the charter and for anybody to make comments those questions, try to clarify things next Tuesday, 24th here at City Hall at 7.
Very good. Thanks, Steve. And then we've got Woody Whitman. Woody, I missed that leprechaun that I'm used to seeing on your shoulder on St. Patrick's Day. That's it. Okay, all right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, it is.
My name is Woody Whitman. I live in 7 Lakeshore Drive. I'm in total agreement with Azer's statement. In his letter to the editor of the remarks of the issues of the Raytown Company, and I have verified that his statements are quite accurate according to the mayor of the county, member of the Raytown City Council. I
Point of order.
I got to stop you there, please. We can't, I'm not going to allow any personal attacks on anybody in this board or anybody else in the city, and I'm not going to allow any of the politics to come out tonight. So please just refrain from any of that, please.
Since those in favor of the charter are well organized, I ask you to take a stand, organize, all of you, raise up, vote opposed, 8.7, and vote no.
Thank you, Whitting. Okay, those are the two people that had signed up. Are there others in the audience that would like to speak to the Board of Aldermen tonight on matters within their control other than the two public hearings that we have tonight? Alan? Yeah, the closer the better, actually. So, but don't break it. We can't afford another one.
Mayor, Alderman,
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. Public comment, sir?
I just have a few comments here. One is from a law that brings hope in it. And if I say anything with the name or anything, I shouldn't do it. From 1969, ordinance revised in 1994. Person appointed to the office of city administrator shall be at least 25 years of age and shall be a resident of the city at the time of the effective date of such ordinance. That's already in the system. One today says the city administrator shall reside in the city or shall establish primary residence in the city. Pretty close to the same thing. Another thing I'd like to make a comment about. These are scenes of things that only a college graduate or someone well-versed in administration.
Sir, we just talked about not mentioning names. So, well, I can't correct you ahead of time, so I got to, please. Thank you.
Someone running for alderman should be college graduate. I'm not running, so I don't care. But I think it's pretty insane that someone who's been on the board for 20, 30 years
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Mr. Wiley? What? We're not responding to public comments. As our normal practice, we're not responding to public comments. And we don't make comments to public comments being offered to us. If you want to leave the dais and go down, you can do that. That's normal practice. We're adhering to normal practices, the same ones we've used the last 8 years. Mr. Wiley. Thanks, John. Alderman. Ms. Van Buskirk. That's all right.
My husband's terrified I can see what I'm saying. I'm here to say one thing.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll move past public comment then. A lot of things happening. I want to make sure everybody knows on the calendar that one of the events that we continue to have here in the city and have had for a number of years, which is coupled by a parade, as a matter of fact, is occurring on April 4th. It's called the Extravaganza. It has been advertised a number of times. It's very well attended, and would certainly love to see a number of citizens come out again for that this year, and hopefully even more than we've had in years past. But it's a growing function. It's an active event, and I don't know if Steve, do you plan to talk any about that tonight? Any further comments? Okay, and then I will. That's an egg extravaganza, big event. Bring your families, bring your kids out. A lot of activities are happening that day in the heart of our town. It's happened for a number of years, and again, we look for it to grow. So I look forward to that. And with that, because we do have a lot on the agenda tonight, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to the city administrator for his communication.
Good evening, Mayor Bauer, Board of Aldermen. I will try to be brief here tonight as well. Just to remind that due to general municipal election, the regularly scheduled council meeting on April 7th will be rescheduled to April 14th, 2015. Also, since we are not going to receive certified election from the county, possibly until April 17th or maybe on April 20th. Therefore, the swearing in of the new elected official will be on April 21st, 2015 agenda. Just as an information, we did receive a bill from Jackson County regarding the upcoming election on April 7th. That is in the amount of $39,400. Now, obviously, those bills kind of adjusted once the election is over. We are still advertising for the position of the Public Works Director, and auditors are continuing to be at City Hall going through the books, and hopefully they will finish their work in the next few weeks. Also received a information bulletin from Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission Chair, and I think they are looking to resolve the issue for the Missouri transportation funding, and they might be coming up with an idea of what they call increasing the Missouri fuel taxes by 2 cents for the next 3 years, and they're calling it 2 + 2 + 2 plus indexing, which is related to the consumer price index after the 3-year. The one thing that got my attention was it's not only for MoDOT, but also part of if the plan succeeded, the cities and counties would evenly split an additional $71 million in new fuel tax revenue each year. So I just thought that piece of information is important that I share, and I'm sure there is more information to be coming up. With that, I will conclude my report for tonight.
Very good, thank you, sir. We'll go to committee reports, and I'll start on my right. Mr. Green, anything you'd like to add, sir?
Nothing to report this time.
Mr. Kramer?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Green?
We're fine. Nothing to report.
Mr. Azier? Nothing to report. Ms. Melson?
I would like to let the board know that the First Suburbs Coalition will be meeting again in April, and I will provide you the meeting details because that hasn't been confirmed yet.
Ms. Emerson?
The Human Relations Committee will meet Thursday of this week at 6 o'clock in the conference room, and we're going to have some new members, which I'm very happy about. Thank you.
Mr. Ertz?
Yes, announced at the park board meeting last night, a major sponsor, Dick Smith Ford, for the music in the park this year. Look, I believe they're between $5,000 and $10,000 sponsor. It's going to be a great event, and I believe Brewer and Shipley will be back this year and organized. So big things should be coming for that
Great
event.
news.
Thank you.
Mr. Van Buskirk?
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mock?
From my understanding, Brewer and Shipley will be back
in Raytown this year, okay? The egg extravaganza, this is the 5th year the egg extravaganza has been held. There will be a Mingle on the Green car show, 10 o'clock that morning. Then, there will be, Dog and Dash is getting ready to ask Mr. Gunther on this other things. At 11 o'clock, egg hunt was start at 1, if I remember right. And I don't have it right in front of me, but to get back to this, there's been a lot of volunteers for the last 5 years that's really stepped out and really worked at this thing awful hard. And it's just not that. I mean, this has been set from just a few to quite a few on our green space here in Raytown. And it takes a lot of volunteers, it really does. So if we can get more and more people to get involved every year, that would be great, you know. But there is a parade back in this city, you know. It's going to be on Saturday, April 4th, with an egg hunt for the kids. And if you can make it out that day, it's very exciting to see a wave of children on that green space going after a bunch of plastic eggs. So please try to make it, okay? Thanks.
Mr. Lightfoot.
There's no legislative committee report today, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll move to the legislative session then. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 items on the consent agenda. Would any one of the board members desire that any one of those items be removed from the consent agenda and dealt with separately? Mr. Kramer?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. You're what? Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion before we vote on those? Ask clerk to call the vote.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Van Busker,
Yes.
Alderman Nelson,
Yes.
Alderman Emerson,
Yes.
Alderman Jason Green,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Josh Green.
Very good, and I appreciate Steve Reichard, Anthony Moore, and Rex Block for stepping up for the Human Relations Commission. As Ms. Emerson mentioned earlier, 3 great candidates, or 3 great members now in that commission, and we look forward to their continued participation in our city here. Move to the regular agenda at this time, and I'll ask the clerk to perform the reading on item number 2, please.
A resolution approving a newsletter advertisement policy for the city of Raytown, Missouri.
Ms. Gustafson, anything you'd like to add on this subject?
Actually, I'm going to defer to Joe Willarth, who is the one that was asked to do the research on the policy.
Our city attorney, Joseph Q. Willarth.
As we roll here. At your request, I looked into the advertising policy to see if there had been any judicial cases, authority, or research on this. There has not been any judicial authority within the state of Missouri. However, this policy in almost identical wording has been approved and upheld in Indian Wells, California, and in a suburb of Minneapolis, and in several other places around the country. So I'm very comfortable with the policy, and in particular the sentence that concerned some members of the Aldermen into its interpretation and scope, which reads, non-commercial advertisements for the purpose of expressing political or religious messages or messages otherwise related to public issues will not be accepted. This is the policy and the language that's been upheld, and I think properly leaves the discretion with your staff to accept anything that would be an inappropriate message, but still would permit the publishing of services of requested or a special event like Martin Luther King Day or certain Christmas events or whatever, if offered to be not containing a message, but just the advertisement of the event itself, still would be permissible under this policy.
Say that again, please, sir. Repeat
I'm sorry?
that, please. Would you please repeat that?
I said it would be permissible, in my opinion, under the terms of this policy, to permit the publication, if requested, of the times of services or of special events, such as the Martin Luther King event or the holiday lighting or whatever. Since it's not containing a message, just the advertisement of the event itself. So with those reviews, It's my opinion that the alderman at this time should have a policy as to the advertising policy, so that staff can have some kinds of controls on it, but still gives the flexibility that you were looking for to have those types of ads or messages, not ads, those types of listings of times or events.
Brenda, anything you'd like to add to that?
No.
All right, very good. We're into discussion. A lot of discussion last week. Mr. Van Busker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe our city attorney has addressed my concerns that I had at our last meeting, and it sounds like the concerns we had, but what would be appropriate or not appropriate, I think falls in, well, I'm comfortable with that. And if they can advertise times of services, special events, I think that's probably what we wanted, some assurance of that. And so I'm comfortable with this, with your explanation.
Ms. Melson.
I have a question. So will staff be making the determination of what appears? Or I thought you said something about it coming to the Board of Aldermen. It's only staff making that determination,
This is
correct?
policy for staff to decide.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Motion's been made, seconded by Mr. Kramer. Still in discussion, if there is any. Any further discussion? Mr. Van Busker.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add that certainly, as with any resolution we pass, we would have the opportunity, if at some point we're not comfortable with what is happening there, we can go back and change it. This is not etched in stone, and we would have that opportunity. So, thank you.
Mr. Willis.
Mr. Van, thank you for the compliment. I don't get one of those every meeting. Very nice. Mr. Van Buskirk's observation is correct. The board is setting the policy with this. The staff is going to do the day-to-day interpretation and acceptance and refusal of advertising submissions. But if you find, as those publications take place, that in some way you're concerned, dissatisfied, or whatever, yes, of course, this can be brought back for further action by the Board of Aldermen to adjust the policy, not perhaps individual staff decisions, but if you see a series of decisions you don't like or it's not working, you can revise it. And if there's changes, Gustafson will continue to monitor advertising policies from around the country. If there are good ideas or changes needed, she would bring those back to the board for review.
Very good. Any further discussion? Again, we've got a motion and a second. No further discussion. Ask the clerk to call the vote.
Alderman Josh Green? Yes. Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Jason Green?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Van Busker?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Emerson?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Mock?
Yes.
Item number 3, please.
A resolution authorizing and approving a purchase of parts and supplies for police vehicles from Ed Rohr Safety Products off the Missouri Department of Transportation purchasing contract in an amount not to exceed $21,810 for fiscal year 2014-2015.
Point of contact is Jim Lynch, the Chief of Police. We have in his absence Captain Doug Good. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Basically, this is a request for approving the purchase in excess of $15,000 from Ed Rohr Safety Products for the external lighting systems on the cars. Because we have gone to the new Ford Police Interceptors, we've got the same thing last year. We have 4 additional cars coming this current year. The old equipment off the Crown Vics doesn't fit, so we end up having to get the new equipment. And this is off a government contract to the Missouri Department of Transportation.
Good. Any questions of Captain Good? Mr. Ertz?
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Mr. Ertz has a motion approved, seconded by Mr. Kramer. Further discussion before we vote? Ms. Melson.
And this is only for the exterior of the police vehicles, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because the next one that we're going to do, that's it. Okay, just checking. Thank you.
No further discussion? Ask clerk to, whoops, I'm sorry, Mr. Van Buskirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to mention that both of these items went through the Sales Tax Oversight Committee and were approved by them before they came to us. Also, to mention that both of these, this one and the next one too, which we haven't discussed yet, but the funds for those will be coming from the capital sales tax for both of those resolutions. Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? Ask clerk to call the vote, please.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Asher. Yeah. Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Jason Green,
Yes.
Alderman Emerson,
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Josh Green, Alderman Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Nelson,
Yes.
Item number 4, please.
a resolution authorizing and approving the purchase of safety equipment from Guerin Marketing in an amount not to exceed $18,163 for fiscal year 2014-2015.
Captain Good, anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, this is similar to the last one, except for this one did go out to bid, and Guerin Marketing was the lowest and the best bid for us. And it's for the inside stuff for the cars, floor pans and petitions and things like that.
Very good. Questions or comments? Mr. Kramer?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Kramer's got the motion to approve, seconded by Ms. Melson. Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Nelson,
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Josh Green, Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Jason Green,
Yes.
Alderman Asher,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Emerson,
Yes.
Thank you, Captain. Item number 5, please.
a resolution acknowledging and supporting the work of the City of Raytown Communities for All Ages Task Force and adopting as city's policy the concepts, strategies, and programs of Communities for All Ages.
John Benson's before us as our Development and Public Affairs Director. John, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, just briefly, Mayor. This is a resolution recognizing the work of our Communities for All Ages Task Force last year, or in 2014, or approximately about a year ago. It was formed. The task force was formed to discuss and develop aspects that make a community such as Raytown more livable for all of our residents of all ages. As a result of our task force work, as well as task force in Prairie Village, Mission, and Gladstone, categories were identified that related to what makes a community more livable. Those categories included public outdoor spaces and buildings, housing and commercial development, transportation and mobility, social inclusion and communication and participation, civic participation and employment, and lastly, community and health services. I should note that these categories are not specific or limited to just city governments, but communities as a whole, such as Shepherd Center of Raytown has a role to play, the Chamber of Commerce, a lot of entities. It's a broad, covers a broad area. These categories that I just covered are also or provide recommended policies and action steps that form the basis for further community discussions, such as what at your last meeting when I talked about the briefings and brainstorming sessions that are going to occur over the next few months. That is these categories and the policies and action steps that come out of this, our task force group will form the basis for those discussions. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Benson? Ms. Emerson?
Yes. What is the cost going to be to us to partner with these other cities?
There is no cost to us to partner with the cities. We're really not partnering with any cities on this. This is just it's more internal to the city of Raytown to have further discussions within our community.
Okay, well, the different cities have different problems and different solutions, and I'm not sure that their solutions would work in Raytown.
And that's not the intent of other cities' solutions that would be dictated to us. It would be for just to form a discussion for each community to determine what works for their community. What works in Raytown may not work in Prairie Village or Gladstone or some other city elsewhere, or what works in their cities may not work here. So it's more of just it's a starting point for discussions.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Nelson?
I was very proud to be on the task force committee for the Community for All Ages, and as part of some of the subcommittees for that, also part of the creation of the Home Idea Book, which I suggest y'all can get, and you can get that on the MARC website, as well as the toolkit, which explains a little bit more about what we're discussing tonight. This has also been a prevalent discussion in the First Ring Suburbs Coalition, which is, that coalition is the 17 suburbs that ring Kansas City, and it's a starting point for future discussions. It's something that we can utilize now to determine where we're going to go and how we're going to address some issues. One of the issues out of the focus groups that we were in was walkability. If anybody's walked in Ward 3, you know there's no sidewalks. So that's one of the things that we have to address, and we're going to get one on 59th Street, which will improve that, but it's walkability. How can you get from one area of town to the other? Exercise is also one of those aspects where we need to get out and exercise, but if you're going down 59th Street in the ditch, that's not real conducive to the exercise. Another item in this report is also on transportation. Transportation is a critical need, and it's going to be even more so with the older adults of our community, because by 2030, the 65-plus population in the greater Kansas City area is going to increase by 107%. It's something that we have to address. Yes, we do have the Raytown Metroplex, but it's something that is going to be increasingly more so in the forefront for the older adults. Another aspect that we did was, about the transportation is, and especially with those older adults not being able to drive, when you take those keys away, what do? How are they going to get anywhere? And that also goes back to social isolation, lack of health care, because they don't have the transportation to get somewhere. That's something that we're going to have to address. Sidewalks, as I said it before, are in desperate need, not only in Ward 3, but all across the city. And granted, we are going to get that one on 59th, will increase the mobility in that area and the safety for those individuals that walk it every day going to Central Middle School and Raytown High School. These are some of the issues that were brought forth in all of these discussions with the KC Communities for All Ages. There will be more discussions coming down the pike, and I would encourage anybody that's interested to get involved with that. You have a voice, you have ideas, you have concerns, and bring those forward, because I would really like to see this continue, and not only the guidelines utilized, but there's also the criteria that's outlined in the silver, bronze, and gold, I think it is, that we'll be going for, to use the checklist. So, I mean, I've been honored to be a part of this. I've met some interesting people, not only from the Raytown community, but from the other 3 communities, and we share a lot of common ground as far as transportation or sidewalks or different things like that. And when you bring those people together, you can understand and go forward with a little bit more knowledge on how to attack that problem. Maybe not just for your community, but for some other communities as well. So I've been very honored in the last 2 or 3 years to work on this, and I do hope that the next Board of Aldermen and Mayor find it suit that they will continue with this, because it has really been a great thing for the city of Raytown. And I'll make a motion to approve.
Whew, that was close. Got a motion made by Ms. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Ertz for approval. Excuse me. Discussion. Open for discussion. Mr. Lightfoot.
Well, I'd like to acknowledge the hard work that a lot of the people on the task force have done, and particularly Alderman Melson's been a big part of that for a lot of years, I know. But I do have to sometimes question adopting a strategy or a concept from other cities in whole. I think it's great that we interact, and I think it's great that we trade ideas and we talk about the needs for the elderly and the aging population. Obviously, demographically, Raytown probably has a older population wholly than these other cities might. And I acknowledge that we got to do something about that to help. But I also, sometimes get afraid of adopting a strategy or a program that's just, it's just all covering for all communities. So I kind of question that. I like to pick the best parts and maybe interact the parts that we may have that make us unique or different and put something together on our own. I like to keep the interacting going, but I don't think I would support the adoption of just a cover-it-all type of program.
Mr. Van Busker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also appreciate the time and efforts of our staff and those citizens that have served on this committee. And we appreciate any time people volunteer for those things. This is an ongoing process throughout the region. I'm comfortable with using this as a resource. I'm not comfortable with adopting it as our policy for our city. I cannot support that. And certainly that resource will be there for our staff. It will be there to share with any builders, developers, individuals that might be interested in anything related to this. But so we can assist builders, we can assist developers, we can assist individuals. We shouldn't try to micromanage things for our citizens. And I think, that's up to families, that's up to other organizations in the city, and I don't think that's the responsibility of government. Certainly we can assist in those things, but I'm not comfortable with making this policy, and I cannot favor it.
Mr. Kramer. Mr. Ertz.
Maybe I should ask the question, is this binding the city to anything by adopting this?
It is not. It is non-binding. It doesn't commit us to anything. It's other, and actually the last three comments all referenced it as a tool. That's exactly what, we're just adopting this as a tool, as a way, a lens in which to look at Raytown and to identify our issues and how to adapt to allow us as a community, our residents, to determine what will make Raytown more livable for all our residents.
So that's what I meant, and like Alderman Van Buskert said, we'll still have this information, which is what we're just saying. Yes, we have this information. We can look at this and use it as we see fit for our community, but at no time will somebody say, well, you adopted this, so therefore you have to do this.
That is correct. It does not commit us.
That is not what this is about. This is just taking all this work that was done and basically having it available, like I believe you guys were saying, which is the good part of this, as being information. And if it was binding, then I too would have had some problems. So if it's in there, or if that's a conflict with somebody, please let me know. Thank you.
Mr. Van Buskirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It actually does state that it would be binding. It says the city of Raytown adopts as its policy the promotion of communities for all ages as a strategy for developing the neighborhoods for residents and so on and so forth. So it does state that in the ordinance. are in the resolution. So I cannot support that.
Would you like to modify that word, sir? Would you be
No,
okay
I
with
think
otherwise?
we can utilize those strategies and utilize this without adopting this as policy. It's there for our staff to utilize as they see fit for our community, for Raytown, which is going to be, Ms. Emerson mentioned that earlier, you know, what's good for Raymore or Belton or somebody else around may not be good for our community and for our city. So I cannot support this.
Are other members of the board willing to possibly change that word from policy? Because after that, it does talk about it's a tool to build awareness of changing demographics.
Mayor Bauer,
Mr. Ertz?
could I maybe ask our attorney, Joe Willerith, to weigh in on what that word should be? Because there seems to be, I mean, I understand what Mr. Alderman Van Busker just said does sound one way, but like I was taking it as being more of a tool on the shelf that we can show rather than a policy as written into law, so.
Concern seems to be with adopting this as a policy, first paragraph. If you don't adopt it as a policy, how is it a tool around here for staff use?
Okay.
You want to adopt it as a tool instead of a policy? I don't know. This is semantics. It does not legally commit or bind this board to future actions other than the review of these factors as a checklist in proposals or presentations or community study. Elaborate. I certainly do not have near the background Ms. Melson or Mr. Benson have in this, but it's really not a binding document or agreement to do anything other than, it's a little overstatement, Joe, it is a guidance or a tool or checklist for future proposals that might come forward to be developed between the entities. For our use.
Would the term guideline be acceptable to this board as opposed to policy? Is that...
I would change my motion to guidelines instead of policy, because I do think it's something I do want staff to at least consider when applicable, obviously not all the time. And obviously this board will see everything come by it anyway, that would come by it. But I do think a lot of work went into this. I would like to see the cities have the opportunity to use things in the study. I'm hoping maybe if Alderman Van Busker has a different word possibly that would be in there so that this could still at least be talked about.
So you're offering an amendment?
Yes, to my motion.
The motion.
There we go, to
Okay.
guidelines.
Let's
Changing
discuss-
the word policy to guidelines, sir?
Guidelines.
All right, let's discuss, is there a second to that? Got a second to that, so let's discuss this possible amendment, changing the word from policy to guideline. Ms. Emerson?
Yes, would we still be able to use this information?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Van Busker?
Well, you certainly could use that information without us passing a resolution to that effect. And my concern is that the effect it could have in the future on developers or someone who wants to build a house, an individual, or, you know, and you try to apply these guidelines, it may increase the cost tremendously for people because it would do that. It would have that effect. So certainly if people want to use it as a resource, and we offer it as a resource, then I'd be comfortable for not that, with that, but not to use as a specific guideline. So that's, I think, very akin to adopting it as policy to say it's going to be our guideline, because then that's the guideline we're going to follow when someone is going to develop something in our city, or some individual wants to build a house, or they want to go in and rehab their house or whatever. Then that's what we would follow. Am I correct, Mr. Benson?
I would respectfully disagree. I think the definition of guideline The way you described it is more, I would interpret that more as an ordinance adopted by the city in a code form. That would be mandatory. That would make something mandatory to a builder or the city on a public improvement project or whatever it may be. What a guideline simply is a guide. That's something that's looked at, and based on it's looked at doesn't dictate that thou shalt do that. It's just, we shall look at that in context to financial capabilities of the city or the needs of the community, things like that. Without it, it's really a broad, wide open, we have no direction really to go, and to take it the opposite extreme direction. This is getting at, we look at what makes our community livable from all ages, from toddlers to the elderly. Without this policy, who's to say we do a plan that totally ignores one segment of our population? Theoretically, we could do that. I'm not saying we would, but theoretically, this is basically just acknowledging in part that that's something we would look at as what makes our community livable, whether it's, and Alderman Melson went through a number of examples on that for all ages. So it's not a code or making anything mandatory. It's just a guide that is gives us a context to look at things in the future.
You just used that term without this policy again, so you use that same word in there. That's what concerns me. If we wanted to change this to utilizing it as a resource, I might be comfortable with that.
Mr. Green.
Joe.
Mr. Kramer.
Well, since we're considering, let's consider the fact that somebody 30 years from now who reads this document might interpret it differently than what we do today. And you know, wording can be twisted around to conform to whatever we want. And, you know, it takes me back to a former president who said it all depends on what your definition of is. And, you know, somebody with a slick verse or a slick talk can convince somebody that it was policy 25, 30 years down the road. And if it's not a policy, then why are we voting on it?
Mr. Jason Green.
Yeah, I was going to echo just what Joe said. First off, I share the same fears I think that many on the city council here have about possibly surrendering autonomy. I think that's the big underlining issue here, obviously. But, you know, and to feed off what Joe said, because I was thinking that exactly, is that if it's used as a resource, why are we even voting on it? If it's something that's optionally used to just look at as a tool, but that's not a policy, but we're considering it, why does it need this board's approval, is my question.
It was looking for your endorsement of the work of the task force, and there is some recognition that we could apply for that would recognize Raytown beyond our borders if it was adopted. Those were the two reasons that this is brought before you tonight.
Okay, because that was this concern I had, or question I had, because I didn't really see if there's no like legal weight, if you will, if it's a policy or if it's a guideline or a resource or a tool, all these interchangeable type words, you know. And I understand the fears about the word policy. I totally get that. Again, I just felt like we can use it as a tool, and when you need to come to us, just use it as a tool. So anyway.
It carries more weight as a tool if the governing body adopts it as a tool. We as staff, I could use it as a tool. A year from now, I could choose not to use it as a tool. 5 years from now, 30 years from now, it could be somebody else. And 30 years from now, things will change. I can guarantee you that. And this policy won't be, or guidelines, whatever we want to call it, won't be around. It'll morph into something else. But when I use the word guidelines, I come from a planning standpoint with that mindset. the comprehensive plan of the city, which was adopted, is a guideline. And the zoning and the subdivision regulations are the codes that implement that comprehensive plan. So this is nothing different really than a guideline, whether you call it a policy, guideline, whatever you want to call it. It carries no teeth like a code provision would in our city code.
Thanks for your time, Mr. Benson.
You're welcome.
Mr. Azier.
I don't feel threatened by the word guideline. I know that Raytown didn't become a city until 1951. If you drive around the city, you can clearly see differences in neighborhoods where there are curbs and storm drains. Before 1951, there were no guidelines. You can see in the neighborhoods where we did have guidelines and restrictions that they're quite different. It's very difficult to go back and undo neighborhoods that didn't have guidelines. It's almost like when you say we want no guidelines, like you're going back to the horse and buggy age. So I would like to see more continuity. And unfortunately, we can't go back and then do the things that were built before 1951, but we can provide for the future. And I think the concept of what John was saying is that the word guideline goes beyond one's tenure. Who will be sitting in John's seat tomorrow or next year or the year after? John may be gone, but the guidelines will still be in place. And that's what we're really voting on tonight.
Mr. Green. Okay. Mr. Kramer? All right, working on lights again, okay. All right, so topic at hand is going to the word guideline as opposed to policy. That's the motion that's in front of us. Yes, there was. Yeah. Yes. You bet. No problem. Of course, we're doing the amendment first. So, the amendment that's before us, yes, is suggesting the term of guideline as opposed to policy as it reads in the document. Everybody know what we're voting on? Okay, call the vote on that, please.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Melson,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
No.
Alderman Josh Green, Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Jason Green,
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk,
No.
Alderman Kramer,
No.
Alderman Azier,
Yes?
Alderman Emerson,
No.
passes.
All right, so we're back to the original motion as has been amended to change the word to guideline as opposed to policy. As that amendment passed. Discussion on that. Okay, everybody clear on what we're going to be voting on? We're voting on the item that's before us, item number 5, R275715, interchanging the word guideline for policy in that document. Call the vote, please.
Alderman Melson,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Emerson,
No.
Alderman Kramer,
No.
Alderman Jason Green,
Yes.
Alderman Josh Green, Alderman Van Buskirk,
No.
Alderman Azier,
Yes?
Alderman Lightfoot,
No.
Alderman Mock,
No.
Mayor votes yes. Mayor votes yes.
Is that a first?
It's not the first, but it's close to the first. Motion passes. Great discussion. All right, now we're going to move to item number 6, which is a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit for property located at 9400 and 9600 East 53rd Place. I'll ask the clerk to perform the reading on this item 6A, please, the second reading.
a resolution granting a conditional use permit subject to certain conditions to operate a vehicle rental business on property located at 9400 and 9600 East 53rd Place in Raytown, Missouri.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Van Buskirk.
after consultation with our city attorney, I believe it would be prudent for me to recuse myself regarding this matter.
Very good, sir. Thank you. And as we reopen this public hearing, are there others that would like to exchange or share any ex parte communication they may have had on this subject? This is the one on 53rd Place. Okay, none appearing. Mr. Benson, would you like to reintroduce the application, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Emmanuel Barger is seeking this conditional use permit to allow a U-Haul rental business to operate at 9400 and 9600 East 53rd Place. As I mentioned at your last meeting, there's two buildings, each at those addresses, but the property, they're both located on one property, so we're dealing with one property. The Planning Commission did consider this application. At the conclusion of their public hearing, they voted 7 in favor and 0 against the application, subject to 3 conditions. 1, the vehicle rental business shall be operated on the premises and may not move to a different location or expand without first obtaining approval in accordance with the city's conditional use permit process as specified by the city's zoning ordinance. 2, rental vehicles shall be parked at locations as indicated on the site plan submitted by the applicant. And 3, compliance with all applicable ordinances and codes of the city of Raytown, the state of Missouri, and the United States. Mr. Barger is here this evening. He doesn't have anything to add other than what he presented to you at your last meeting, but he is here to answer any questions if you have any for him, and I'll be happy to answer any questions likewise.
Okay. All right, any questions of Mr. Benson before we proceed? My next step would be to go to to public comment. So any questions of staff before we go to public comment? Then, thank you. I'll go to public comment on this. If anyone in the audience would like to address the Board of Aldermen on this particular item, this would be the time to come forward to do so. Okay, moving past public comment, back to Mr. Benson. Anything else you'd like to add before we go to debate amongst the council or the city?
I have nothing further.
Board. Okay. Then with that, we'll go to board discussion. I'll close the public hearing and go to board discussion on this. Proper actions might be discussion or even offering a motion if so desired. Mr. Green. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to thank the applicant for willing to invest his time, energy, and strengths into this. The entrepreneurial spirit is the backbone of this nation, made this nation the great one that it is. I make a motion to approve.
Mr. Jason Green's got the motion to approve, second by Mr. Josh Green. Into discussion then. Mr. Ertz?
I'm sorry,
Okay. We've got a motion made and seconded. No further discussion. Ask clerk to call the vote.
Alderman Jason Green?
Yes.
Alderman Josh Green? Yes. Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Van Busker? Alderman Emerson?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Azier? Alderman Mock?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Thank the applicant for choosing Raytown. We look forward to your success as a business and it thriving here in Raytown. Thank you. I saw Mock set that up earlier, so. Alderman Mock, excuse me. How come you didn't straighten up Mr. Lightfoot's while you were there, though? All right, very good. Motion is passed. We're moving on to item number 7, which is a public hearing to consider a text amendment to the architectural design standards specified in the Crescent Creek Design Manual. I ask the clerk to perform the second reading on this, please.
An ordinance granting an amendment to the architectural design standards specified in the Crescent Creek Design Manual adopted by ordinance number 4952-04 on March 16, 2004.
All right, Mr. Benson, as we at this time reopen this public hearing, and prior to commenting, I want to make sure that we don't have any ex parte communication that anyone would like to share on this matter. Ms. Melson?
I did have a conversation with the gentleman after the last meeting, which will not determine my future decision.
Okay. All right, Mr. Benson, anything you'd like to add, sir?
Just very briefly again, Crescent Creek Revitalization LLC is seeking amendment to the Crescent Creek design standards. These two amendments relate to driveway. First one relates to driveways that would, as proposed, allow driveways in the front yard only for lots that do not have alley access and shall be in a maximum of 20 feet in width. And the second amendment relates to garage doors and states that garage doors shall not face the street if alley access is available. Where a garage door faces the street, the following standards shall apply. 1, not more than 22 feet of the garage, inclusive of the garage door, shall extend beyond the side wall of the primary structure on the lot. And 2, the front of the garage shall not extend in front of the front plane of the house. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this application, and at the conclusion of which they voted 7 in favor and 0 against the amendments I just read to you. I also need to add as an Exhibit I, since the conclusion of the last Board of Aldermen meeting, we were notified by a property owner within Crescent Creek that was inadvertently not notified of the public hearing of this amendment. I have met with that property owner. The owner is Tim and Michelle Truesdale. Met with Tim yesterday. He did provide an email to me stating that they have no hesitation about seeing this public hearing moving forward as scheduled regarding the Crescent Creek amendments. So I'd like to enter his email to me as Exhibit I. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicants are here tonight as well to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Benson, before we go forward? All right. Would the applicant like to make a presentation? Terrific. Very good, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? All right. Ms. Emerson?
I just want to say that I look forward to that area being developed. It's set idle for so long, and I make a motion to approve.
Not quite yet. I got to get through public
Okay.
comment yet.
All right.
Please, hold on to that thought, though. Would anyone in the audience like to address this board on this particular matter at this time via public comment? Ms. Emerson, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We're closing the public hearing and into board discussion. Ms. Emerson offers a motion to approve, second by Ms. Melson. Into discussion. Mr. Van Buskirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I stated last week, or I'm not sure I put it in quite in these terms, but, an analogy would be that if you run into a brick wall, you just don't keep trying to go through that brick wall, and you go a different direction. I think that's what you're doing here. That's the appropriate thing to do. And I'm certainly in favor of this, and I hope it's very successful.
Very good, thank you, sir. Any other discussion? We've been through the due course of the public hearing. No further discussion. Again, we've got a motion and a second. Public hearing's closed already. Call the vote, please.
Alderman Emerson,
Yes.
Alderman Melson,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Josh Green, Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Jason Green,
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
To the applicant, thank you. Thanks for having the confidence to bring this development back to where we had years ago planned for it to be. We welcome new homes and their new residences, bringing more residents to the city of Raytown. We thank you for working with staff as well as you have. We look forward to your being quite successful. Thank you. Now, I've got one other item of business. Scouting has always been important to me over the years, and you all know that very well. We've had a very patient scout sitting with us tonight, Anthony Sicardi. Did I get that close? He's working on a merit badge. He has sat through a good council meeting tonight. We're proud, young man, of all the diligence that goes into the work by these people to talk to each other ahead of time, to bring their thoughts together and to act in a responsible manner. And I hope you experience that tonight and you continue to do well in scouting on your trail to Eagle. Thank you for attending tonight. And with that, Mr. Ertz got the motion to adjourn. Seconded by Mr. Kramer. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. That was close. That was good. More of that to come. Yep. Exactly.